Hey guys, just wanted to give a little bit of instruction for these three different types of third person. So, yesterday we talked about um, first person, second person, and third person. So, remember, first person is telling a story about yourself, second person is giving instructions, and third person is when you're telling a story about someone else. And then within third person, there are also three types: limited, omniscient, and objective. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is omniscient. So omni means all, and scient means knowing. So in third person omniscient, the narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of more than one character. Okay, and that's really important that you're looking at the thoughts and the feelings and of how many characters. Okay, so let's look at this example. John came home from school and immediately got ready for football practice. John was worried that the coach would be upset with him if he was late to practice again. John's teammates felt like John wasn't a team player because he missed practice a lot, and they thought he wasn't dedicated. In reality, John loved football, but he had to babysit a lot for his mom when she had to work late, and that conflicted with his practice schedules. Okay, so the first thing when you're looking at point of view, the first thing that you want to do is you want to decide, is it first, second, or third? Okay, so is this, in this example, is the narrator talking about themselves? No, they are not. So it cannot be first person. Are they giving instructions? Nope, not giving instructions. So it's got to be third person. Okay, so now that we know that it's third person, how many people's thoughts and feelings do you know? Well, we know John for sure because it says that John was worried. So we know that he felt worried. So remember, we're looking at thoughts and feelings. And then we also know that John's teammates felt like John wasn't a team player. Okay, so we know John's thoughts and feelings and we know the teammates. If we know more than one, it's omniscient. Okay, second one that we're going to look at is third person limited. You know, when you're limited with something, means that you can only have so much. Okay, same thing with third person limited. You are limited to just one character. You only know the thoughts and feelings of one character. So in this example, John was running late for practice again. He hated when his mom had to work late because he had to babysit his little sister until his mom got home. Okay, so is it first, second, or third? Well, it's not first person because it's not telling the story about himself. It's not giving instructions. It's using characters' names. It's using he and his, so it's got to be third person. Okay, now that we know that it's third person, is it limited, omniscient, or objective? Well, we know that John hated it when his mom had to work late. Do we know how his mom feels? No. Do we know how his sister feels? Nope. The only person that we know how they are thinking or feeling is John. So it has to be third person limited. All right. Lastly, we have third person objective. In objective third person, the narrator doesn't tell us any thoughts or feelings of any of the characters. Okay, we only know what's happening, not what people are thinking or feeling. Okay, so in this example, John came home from school and immediately got ready for practice. Okay, we do not know how John is feeling. We don't know what John is thinking. All we know is what he is doing. He came home from school and got ready for football. All right, so just like I said earlier, the first thing that you want to do is decide if it's a first, second, or third. Are they telling a story about themselves? Are they giving instructions? Or are they telling a story about someone else? Once you establish that they are indeed telling the story about someone else, that it's third person, then you have to decide how many characters do you know the thoughts and feelings from? Okay, whose story is the narrator telling? Is it his, mine, or someone else's? That's the first thing you want to do. And then you're going to focus on the narration and not the dialogue. and decide whose thoughts and feelings do you know. All right, let's look at a couple examples. As soon as the adults had fallen asleep, he got up, pulled on his jacket, opened the lower door, and crept outside. The moon was shining brightly, and the white pebbles in front of the house were glistening like silver coins. Hansel bent over and filled his jacket pockets with them, as many as he could fit. Okay, so let's start right from the beginning. Is this first, second, or third? Well, is the narrator telling a story about themselves? You see any of those I, me, us, we? Nope. Are they giving instructions? No, they're not giving instructions. I see he, I see Hansel, I see his jacket. Okay, so they must be telling the story about someone else, which means it's third person. Now that we know that it's third person, how many characters do you know the thoughts and feelings from? Okay. Well, do we know how Hansel is feeling? Or what he's thinking? No, we do not. We do not. We only know what he is doing. We only know what he is doing. Okay, so if we only know what he's doing, it's going to be objective. So this one is third person objective. Okay, Mrs. Thompson watched Pedro walk away from the schoolyard alone. There was a small voice inside her, that told her to stop him. He's just a little boy. He's far too small to walk home alone, she thought. Pedro walked by the white picket fence that he walked by every day on his way to and from school. He stopped at the next street. Which way do I turn? He thought to himself. He stood there and he looked up and down the street, trying to remember if he needed to turn left or right. He turned right, and then he looked desperately for something that looked familiar to him. Nothing did. He started to panic. Where am I? Should I turn around and go back? I wish my sister was with me. Okay, so again, is it first, second, or third? Well, they're not telling the story about themselves. We don't see I, me, we, any of those pronouns that we look for. These are not instructions, but I do see character's name. I see she, I see her. Okay, so it must be third person. Now, how many characters, thoughts, and feelings do we know? Well, do we know what Mrs. Thompson is thinking? We do. We do know. She thinks he's too small to walk home alone. It says right in that after that dialogue, it says she thought. Okay, so she thought he was too small to walk home alone. Then, as we go throughout the story, we see that Pedro started to panic and says, I wish my sister was with me. Okay, so we know what Mrs. Thompson is thinking and feeling, and we also know what Pedro is thinking and feeling. We know more than one character. It's omniscient. Okay? All right, last one. When Jane and Elizabeth were alone, the former, who had been cautious in her praise of Mr. Bingley before, expressed to her sister how very much she admired him. He's just what a young man ought to be, she said. Sensible, good-humored, lively, and I never saw such happy manners, so much ease with such good breeding. Okay? So in this excerpt from Pride and Prejudice, we have Jane and Elizabeth. Okay, so we see characters' names. It's telling about someone else, so we automatically know that it's third person. Okay, so it's not first, it's not second, it is third. Now, whose thoughts and feelings do we know? Well, we know that Jane admired Mr. Bingley. We know that she thinks he's sensible and good-humored and lively and just perfect. Okay. Do we know what Elizabeth thinks? We do not. We don't have any idea what Elizabeth thinks or Mr. Bingley. So, since we only know what Jane is thinking or feeling, it's got to be limited. So, third person limited. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to use these notes and you're going to do a little bit of practice identifying all of these types. So the first thing that you want to do is try to decide, is it first, second, or third? Once you establish that it is third, okay, so you're going to have some that are first person, you're going to have some that are second person, and then you are going to have some that are third person. Once you decide that it is third person, then you have to go even further and decide, is this limited, omniscient, or objective? Okay, it's similar to the one that we did yesterday where you say what type it is. We are just adding on these new concepts about limited, omniscient, and objective. Okay, and then you do have to explain, how did you know what the point of view was? Okay, again, if you have any questions, let me know. You can definitely send me an email, and I will be checking in with you later on next week.